Hi guys, thanks for joining. We'll just wait a few more minutes for others to join. Thanks for joining. For the few who just joined us now, we'll just wait a few more minutes for others to join, and then I'll get underway. We'll just give it a few more minutes, and then I'll start. Okay, I think I'll begin, and I'll just try and admit people as and when they come in. So good afternoon everyone, and thanks for joining, and also thank you for Reading Council for giving us the slot here on their Climate Festival. My name is Ed Andrews, and I'm the Commercial Director at Insta Group. Today I'll be discussing what energy saving measures you can easily implement in your home, the importance of a fabric first approach, and also discussing some elements of the process and more technical aspects of the measures as well. But firstly, I just want to give an introduction to Insta Group. Insta Group are a company based in Finch Hampstead near Woking. Near Wokingham. I'm just trying to move on to the slides. Oh, here we go. Okay. We just entered our 42nd year of trading. We install a wide range of energy efficiency measures into residential homes, public buildings, and also commercial buildings. We've been working on almost every government energy efficiency and fuel poor prevention scheme for the last 30 odd years. And our core services are loft installation, cavity wall installation, and solid wall installation, along with some heating and more recently solar PV renewables as well. We have our own approved installation products, which we distribute to our network of installers around the country, and also to our local division here in Berkshire. Our network spans across England, Wales, and Scotland, and we have over 55, 60 installers. Now, these installers are independent SMEs with a strong presence in their local communities. And finally, it's probably worth mentioning that as we have our own approved products, we have a fairly strict onboarding process for anyone who would like to join the network and install them. Therefore, our tech team do on-site audits, quality checks, and attend any technical customer queries that might be. So what I really want to discuss today is more about the fabric-first approach to energy saving. The term essentially means that in order to reduce your energy use, money spent on fuel bills, and importantly, carbon entering the atmosphere, we need to look at the fabric and makeup of your homes. The UK housing stock makes up about 30% of the carbon dioxide output of the UK. This is a huge figure and the key element to sort out if we are to meet our Paris agreements and reach net zero by 2050. Looking at the energy use of the homes in the UK, about 60% of the household energy use is from space heating and a further 20% for heating water. Both of these obviously use a lot of gas, which is generally from a non-renewable source. In order to reduce the amount of heating, we need to ensure the insulation of our homes is as good as it can be to prevent any unnecessary heat loss. Once the fabric of the building is efficient and insulated, only then can we discuss low carbon heating, heat pumps and renewables. These are a waste of money if the basic insulation hasn't been addressed and isn't as efficient as possible. Generally, the main insulation measures for domestic housing are listed here. So you've got loft insulation, cavity wall, and then external wall insulation. Let me go through each one. So loft insulation, I'm sure everyone is aware, but we would come out and do a quick survey. This is something that you could probably review yourselves by looking into your loft spacing and seeing A, if there's any existing insulation, B, potentially measuring the depth of that insulation and just having a quick look at the condition. We would send a qualified retrofit assessor over to your property to do a full retrofit assessment. And part of the assessment will be looking at the loft space as well as the walls. We then design a system suitable for your property. We can adhere to any particular needs that you might have in terms of having boarding down for additional space. We would always recommend a minimum of 300 mils insulation. However, we can obviously go up to 400 or 450 in some cases when necessary. The process of the design, well, the survey, design and install has all been overarched now by a new role in the industry, which is a retrofit coordinator. So they'll review all of the surveys, all the assessments, all the design elements, and they will be the ones to approve the recommendation, and then the installation can go ahead. Generally with loft installation, it's quite quick and quite easy. The biggest issue really is making sure that the loft space is free and clear of any suitcases and things you put up there for years and years and years. We can help certain residents with the removal of items from the loft space as well. And as mentioned before, we can also put boarding down to make sure that there's more of a usable space if needed. The other thing that retrofit coordinator will look out for is the ventilation. We need to make sure that if we're adding more insulation to it and we're sealing up the property in any way, we also need to make sure that moisture is able to escape the building correctly to prevent any damp or mold forming. On the screen you can see a graph which is from the Energy Savings Trust, giving a brief estimated annual savings on property type. Now, granted, these savings were put together in April 22. So with the additional fuel bill increases that's coming this winter, then we expect those to increase quite significantly. On to cavity wall insulation. This is again a fairly softly touched approach where we can actually do a lot of the work from the outside the property without disrupting the internals or coming into the property if necessary. The survey, design and install process is the same as it would be for loft. So we would have a retrofit assessor to come out and do an assessment, which will then be approved and signed off by the coordinator. This survey would also include a boroscope view to make sure that the cavity walls are empty and clear of any rubble. In some cases, they might have already been filled, so we just need to make sure that that's, if it's still in good condition, then that's fine. If in some cases there are air gaps or voids, or if there's been any damage to the insulation itself, there's a process that we need to follow, and then if that all follows through, then we can potentially extract any insulation which is in bad condition or causing issues with the internals, and it could transgress water into the property as well. So slightly different survey for cavity wall, obviously, but again, you can see some of the annual savings for cavity wall insulation. Both loft and cavity wall installation can be funded depending on the property type, the tenure, usually the EPC band, and depending on the local authority if they're able to access certain funding as well. But again, that's something that Instagroup, the surveyors, will be able to talk you through, and if there is funding available for yourselves, we can let you know about that. And then finally, just worth talking about external wall insulation. This tends to be more of a complicated measure to install. There can be planning constraints which we need to adhere to depending on where the property is located. The cost of external wall insulation is significantly higher than loft and cavity, and there is funding available for it, but again, we need to check eligibility and suitability. There's a strict survey, design, install process here as well. For these kind of measures, we'd have our technical inspectors on site almost every other day, just to make sure that the system is being installed correctly, making sure that all the cold bridging potentials have been sorted. And again, ventilation is really key with solid wall insulation when you're wrapping the property and sealing up any ventilation bits there. This is quite weather dependent, so coming into the winter months can be quite tricky to install efficiently. However, there are ways around it, and we can try and work through the winter as best as possible. And again, I think it's probably worth our surveyor coming out and really kind of walking around the property and making sure that you're aware of the not disruption, but if you've got gate fences, if you've got conservatories, if you've got flower beds and trees, etc., on the property, then they'll need to be addressed, because the insulation boards can be 90 mil or 120 mil thick going all the way around the property. So it's just something we need to make sure that it's suitable and that planning is also adhered to. The interesting thing about external solid wall insulation is that it really increases the aesthetics of the property. We've had some issues where properties along the street might be looking quite tired, and we can go along and completely re-render it, and the finish looks really, really nice. So we can probably take any questions on these measures maybe after the presentation. So I just want to kind of chat to you about a few bits of advice and what you can do from here to take advantage of funding, ensure your home is as energy efficient as possible, and therefore saving money and carbon, of course. So it's best to get in contact with a local installer if possible. A couple of years ago, Trustmark set up a website where it's a really good place to find installers, because everyone on there is registered and gone through provided proof of quality and certification. So you should be assured that any installer listed on the Trustmark website should be following the process and making sure that all the measures that they recommend are suitable for your property. So it's also interesting it's always a good route to find any additional funding. I know that Reading are very proactive as a council at speaking to the government, speaking to BEIS and accessing funding where possible. Instagroup can also, again, help advise during the survey on that as well. I think it might be worth kind of leaving it there, to be honest, because I'm not sure if you guys might have some specific questions or any kind of property specific bits you want me to kind of cover. But essentially, to sum up, insulation is really key to not only meet our net zero goals, but also it's an immediate positive benefit for your home. It's particularly looking at the winter that's coming and the increase in fuel bills. The new government have been quite vocal about the importance of reducing demand of energy use. And I think later on next year, April, there'll be an additional scheme to what's already available. And that should be targeting those who aren't necessarily on benefits or in fuel poverty, but still need support in insulating their homes. And so I'm sure, we'll definitely be speaking a lot more about that on our website and on our social media, and in conjunction with Reading Council as well. So I think at that point, I think it's probably worth passing over to you guys and seeing if you have any questions or if you want me to cover anything specific. I think we've got sort of 10-15 minutes left. So over to you guys. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Okay, so there's a question in the chat. Okay, so this is something we come up quite a lot in Reading. So there's the question for those who can't read is I live in a Victorian Georgian terrace with solid wall property. External insulation probably isn't very practical or desirable given the architecture style of the house. Is internal wall insulation a viable option? So yeah, we come across this a lot, to be honest. You know, we've got these amazing Victorian properties with great aesthetics, and you don't really want to go and put block boarding and render over it. And obviously planning would have something to say about that as well. So with these properties, yes, internal wall insulation is a viable option in most cases. Sometimes you could do the rear of the property with the standard external wall insulation and making sure just the frontage is done internally. That's called like a hybrid system. With internal wall insulation, we just need to make sure that you as a homeowner are aware of the system, because it will encroach into your living space slightly by sort of 90 or 120 millimeters. And we just need to make sure that if there are any kitchens or bathrooms on that external wall, we need to address that, because what we don't want is insulating part of the wall and then leaving what's called a cold spot, because that's where moisture will attract and damp will form. So it's probably worth us looking at that. And we are talking to Reading Council about the Victorian properties that are around, and there's a lot of them. So we're going to try and work out a solution there. So yes, it can be done. Internal wall insulation can be quite intrusive and can be quite costly, but in some cases it is kind of the only viable option. Yeah, so thanks for your question, Ed. No problem. Anyone else that have any kind of more sort of property specific questions, or any questions generally on, I don't know, on funding or different bits? So another question has just come in from Sophie. I've applied for internal wall grants when they've been around, but having had an extension, not enough to insulate. Yeah, so the question here from Sophie is around sort of the funding eligibility, and it can be quite frustrating, because if properties or extensions are built at a certain age, more of a kind of recent age, then in some cases there's a conflict between building regulations and then funding available for retrofit works. And also there are some eligibility issues or criteria with funding where you need to be insulating at least 2/3 of the property. And when you have extensions, which are usually classed as part of the property area, then there can be some conflicts. I assume that the grant was probably around the Green Homes grant maybe a couple of years ago. I think we could probably kind of try and re-look at the property. I'm not entirely sure how we can help, if we can help, but the problem that some of the funding does stipulate certain requirements around the original walls to insulate. Yeah, so I'm not sure if Instagroup did the survey, or if you've had a survey done, but yeah, the 2/3 thing. Yeah, we do come up with that quite a lot. I don't know whether the funding might change or might relax a little bit, because a lot of properties did miss out of that round of funding because of it. So, we'll try and contact you if it does change, or if you just keep your ears to the ground, or on Reading Council website, and hopefully we might be able to resolve that in the future. It's a message from John, Council Management. Okay, so yeah, historically, the cavity wall and loft installation kind of industry has a bit of a bad press around causing damp in the properties. Now, 2 years ago, the whole industry underwent a massive regulatory change, where we've implemented new surveyor skills, and we've got this new role, which is a retrofit coordinator. And ventilation is almost at the key forefront of the topic of conversations now. So whenever we're doing cavity wall installation or loft installation, we have to install ventilation strategy. So that could be trickle vents in the windows, it could be a core vent, it could be felt vents in the lofts, those kind of things, just to make sure that the ventilation is adequate for the additional kind of sealing up of the property. And if they don't work both in tandem, then there can be some damp issues, but they can be easily resolved as well. So I'm not sure if that's something that's affected yourself, John, or if it's just more of a kind of comment really. But yeah, ventilation is taken very seriously now in the industry. Just so going back to your point, the only thing I would sort of recommend is making sure that the loft installation is done, and making sure that if you can, any underfloor installation potentially, whether that can be quite disruptive. Whether you might be able to get any grants or self-fund some of the installation, although I understand it is expensive, the internal wall installation. So it is really tricky, but I guess it's making sure that all the other measures in the property are up to a high standard as well. Is there any other questions at all, or anything you want me to kind of go over or kind of cover at all? No? Okay, well, thank you again for joining. I know it's over sort of lunch, I think, so appreciate that. And what I'll do, I'll just put my email address in the chat in case you need that, or if you've got any questions you might prefer to message me about. Please let me know. And I just hope you enjoy the rest of the Reading Climate Festival. It's something that we're big supporters of. I think this is our second or third year now presenting. So we're very local to you guys. So if you need any, just a quick survey or some advice, we can definitely send someone out and pop over and have a chat. So yeah, take my email address and please let me know if there's anything else we can do for you guys. I think let me just stop the recording and stop sharing. Okay, great. Well, thanks again for joining, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks a lot.